Hi, thanks for joining me on My Child Astrology. I'm Cameron. I'm a mom and an astrologer, and I'm here to help you understand your child better through the lens of astrology. Today, we are discussing the air element and how it expresses through your child's sun sign. Expresses is just the right word, too, since the air signs are the most expressive and communicative of all. If you have a Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius sun kid, you know this to be true. The air element is mental, rational, and able to conceive or conceptualize ideas. They tend to spend a lot of time in their heads thinking and considering and analyzing. They want to find the reason for things. They want a logical explanation of why. Every child asks why a lot, and sometimes adults give limited answers based on what seems appropriate at the time. That usually won't work too well with these kids. They are fascinated by information and they want to know as much as possible. So, to encourage their clarity and understanding, it's important to be thorough, clear, and honest about the reason for things. Of course, you have to consider their age, maturity level, and development when choosing how much information to give, but in general, it's best to give it to them straight. Being that they are information gatherers, they will find out the answers eventually, so better that they hear it from you. One nice thing about your rational air sign child is that they can often be reasoned with. So take advantage of that. Explain clearly your reason for having a particular rule or making a certain request. Treat them as though they are intelligent enough to understand the reason. Listen to their reasoning if they want to debate you, especially the Libras. Encourage discussion and curiosity, and try to avoid the because I said so type of decrees. I know that's easier said than done, but if you're willing to have a conversation with them about why you have certain expectations, you will often be rewarded with a more cooperative child. And you will be modeling the thought processes that they will have to learn to use as they grow and have to someday make choices and decisions for themselves. Another important characteristic of air is adaptability. Air moves and travels all over, and these kids often appreciate variety in life. They are naturally curious and usually enjoy trying new things, meeting different people, or checking out something they've never done or seen before. We discussed routine a lot with the earth signs, and while routine is still important to these kids, they do better with an outline type of structure that gives space for some movement and variety. Sometimes it's better to have a 30-minute approximate window for meal times and bedtimes. The air signs need space to breathe. Also, being that they are such thinkers and information gatherers, these kids can get pretty heady. They can exhaust themselves with overthinking, and all of the mental activity can manifest as anxiety and sleep issues. Exercise and physical activity is very important for these kids to use up some of that mental energy. It needs to drop down from the head and come through the body, especially for the younger kids. Older air sign kids can express themselves by writing in a journal or diary, but before they're old enough to have that outlet, the mental energy has to be moved out physically. So keep that in mind for air sign kids of all ages. They will sleep better if they are too worn out to overthink. So as we discuss the three air signs, you'll notice that the concept of paradox comes up quite a bit. These signs are caught in a dance between reason and emotion. They seek to explain the human experience, to look at things objectively, and elevate us beyond our more base human instincts. But of course, they are human and subject to the irrational motivations that sometimes go along with that. That's why some of their qualities seem to contradict themselves. It's feet on the ground, head in the clouds kind of thing. So let's talk about Gemini, ruled by the messenger god Mercury. Here is our chatterbox. Gemini is the most communicative of all of the signs, the airiest of all three. I've heard some astrologers liken Gemini to a bird or a butterfly. It lands on a flower, stays for a while, then flits off to a tree branch. A gust of wind can come along and send it flying elsewhere. It's very changeable energy, needing variety and lots of stimulation. Geminis are usually insatiably curious, so much so that they have a hard time staying put to delve deeper into the subject at hand. This can lead to superficial knowledge of many things and a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type of skill set as they age. They are known for having short attention spans. My Gemini nephew would barrage me with questions when he was little, some of them quite deep and soulful, but before I could get my answer out, he was asking me the next question. It used to drive me nuts, even though I understood why his mental energy functioned that way. I'm happy to report that, as a young adult, he's able to listen to the answers to his wonderful questions, but the conversation still moves on very quickly. So your Gemini may need to be taught active listening skills. This will require patience from you and developing maturity from them. Don't expect your 6-year-old to listen to an exhaustive explanation of anything. Bullet points. It's best to communicate succinctly and efficiently with these kids. Convey the information while you have their attention, because you won't for long. Soon the butterfly will be off to the next flower. These kids can be very fickle, which can affect their relationships. The person or activity that once fascinated them can be replaced by fascination with something else. You will have to teach them the value of following through on their commitments. They have to learn to see things through even if they're no longer interested. If you sign them up for 6 weeks of tennis lessons, have them attend the entire session, even if for some reason it becomes boring to them. They need to learn to maintain engagement even after the initial spark of interest has waned. This will serve them well in life because, as we know, adulthood requires sticking with things regardless of whether or not it is fun in the moment. The same holds true for friendships. Gemini often has lots of friends, and a variety of friendships should be encouraged. They may feel stifled if they spend too much time with the same 1 or 2 friends. This can be confusing or hurtful to the kid who wants a best friend who they do everything with. A Gemini who gets too close like this can get restless and unconsciously stir up drama to make things more interesting. They may have to learn the value of loyalty through changing relationships with different types of friends. Falling out with friends seems to be a bit more common with Gemini, which is honestly a symptom of boredom. So giving your Gemini kid experiences where he can have different friend groups, his neighborhood friends, his cousins, school friends, his soccer friends, etc., a variety of relationships satisfies his need for stimulation and gives him a chance to explore the many different facets of his personality. But as he matures, Gemini needs to learn that you can't take people off and on like clothes. He needs to understand constancy and loyalty and learn to cultivate those traits in himself. The good news is those traits are there somewhere along with his other personalities. Because they have so much mental energy, Gemini kids often enjoy the challenge of board games and card games, checkers, etc., stuff like that. Watching TV is too mentally passive for them. They need to use their brains and be challenged every day. They are also usually good with their hands and enjoy detail-oriented tasks and craft projects. They are often good at jewelry making, weaving, or pottery, anything that challenges their dexterity and mind. A Gemini that doesn't use his brain enough can be very fussy and complain a lot, so give that energy a fun, healthy outlet. The positive side of this is that Geminis usually enjoy school. They love to learn and be engaged with other people in the learning process. Because Gemini loves to talk, they are usually quite social. Your Gemini kid needs to bounce ideas off of other people and satisfy their curiosity about life through engagement with others. If it's true that extroverts gain energy from being around people, then Gemini is almost always more extroverted. An only child will need lots of play dates and opportunities to be with their peers. They like to be busy, which can be exhausting for more introverted parents. "I'm bored" is a common complaint. The good news is they have a big imagination and a rich inner world, but you have to teach them to find it within themselves. They need to learn to make their own fun sometimes. One last aspect of Gemini that I'd like to discuss is their duality, or sometimes duplicity. It is the sign of the twins, and they can seem to have 2 sides. But if you think about it, everybody does. I think of the tragedy comedy masks that you often see outside theaters. There's a duality to human nature as we wrestle with the light and dark expressions of ourselves. Because Gemini is so changeable and verbally expressive, these 2 sides can be more apparent in them. We all wear both masks, but they change theirs more frequently, it seems. The downside to this can be duplicity and a two-faced nature, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of stuff. The communicator in them can turn into the gossip, which can cause trouble with friends. They can be sharp and cutting with their words. This means that there is pain underneath the surface, and I would encourage you to discuss that possibility with your child. Can the two of you figure out and resolve that pain? If not, maybe it needs to be examined with a professional child psychologist. Talk therapy can be great for helping your Gemini understand cause and effect, and it brings more awareness to how he shows up in relationships. Of course, that's true for all of us, but Gemini's love of knowledge can be directed towards self-knowledge, and because of their adaptability, they can make positive changes and leaps in mental health. They need to verbally process things, so give them healthy outlets for this. Check out your child's Mercury sign, house position, and aspects to better understand the way they use all of that mental energy. But regardless of, or thanks to Mercury, life will never be boring with your Gemini. So the next air sign is Libra, lovely Libra. Here the air energy moves from the curiosity of self-exploration to the interest in relating with others. Libra is focused on relationships, both human relationships and the way different ideas relate to each other. Libras have a need to see both sides and bring them into balance with each other. Where there is opposition or polarity, Libra wants harmony. This can result in a lot of sitting on the fence, thinking about the best thing to do. So overthinking and indecision can be a problem for these kids. This can show up in relationships as a desire to keep the peace at all costs. Remember that Libras are seeking balance, so they don't like strife, conflict, or discord. And that can lead to avoidance of conflict, which results in people-pleasing. Your Libra can be so focused on understanding the other person's perspective that she fails to consider her own. This can create an inauthentic type of personality, someone who is superficially nice and tells people what they want to hear. So it's really important for Libras to know that their needs and their point of view are as important as anyone else's. They tend to live through others and define themselves by their relationships. This can keep them from having self-integrity, so encourage your Libra to check in with herself as often as she considers others. Too much people-pleasing and living for others can cause resentments over time, which is really stressful for Libras because they so dislike conflict. So they push the feelings down, which can create bigger problems later in life. Libra is ruled by the planet Venus, known as the goddess of love. They want everything to be beautiful and harmonious. Beauty is important to them, and not just on a superficial level, it feeds their soul. They can be very deeply affected by the beauty or lack of in their surroundings. These kids may have strong opinions about decorating their bedrooms or the new paint color you picked out for the living room. They need the environment to appeal to their senses. Similar to what we discussed with Taurus kids, a sign also ruled by Venus, Libra will be sensitive to loud noises and bright lights and unpleasant smells. They want peace and beauty around them so that they can feel at peace within themselves. Remember that Libra lives in relationship at all times. Even if there is no one around, they are in relationship with their belongings and environment. I remember a Libra moon friend of mine just staring at the pretty new pair of shoes on her feet. She was gazing adoringly at them, just having a moment, completely enamored with them. Don't be surprised if a certain doll or toy or their new guitar seems to be your child's new best friend. They experience themselves through the other, and that other can be a possession. So do give them input about the things that may not seem important to other kids. Your 3-year-old may decide she only wants to wear tutus, so whenever possible, let her. If she finds them pleasing, then that is bringing some part of her into balance. Save yourself the hassle of having to pick out her clothes and just let her decide for herself, according to her own taste. She probably will ask your opinion, though. Libra likes to know what others think, and they can get too caught up in that. Again, back to that living life through their relationships. They can worry too much about superficial appearances and care how they appear to others. They may be overly focused on a certain type of outfit or brand of clothing because it's popular. This is usually more of an issue in the adolescent and teen years. The littler Libras just like what pleases them. They can still be pretty vain, though. A friend of mine who has a 7-year-old Libra was joking with me that she may have to take all of the mirrors out of her house just because her daughter is always posing and admiring herself. So know that that vanity doesn't have to be a negative thing. Libra soothes herself by experiencing beauty. It's as simple as that. So keep that in mind when you are decorating the house. Also keep that in mind when you are having arguments or tense discussions with your partner or whoever else is around. Do that stuff out of earshot of your Libra kid. Hearing others argue can be extremely stressful for them, to the point of causing trauma. If you and your mate are the feisty type of dramatic arguers, don't fight in front of your Libra any more than you would have sex with the door open. If you are able to stay civil, then by all means model a civilized discussion of conflict resolution for your child. But if you are a passionate yeller, keep that completely removed from them. If you are divorced from their other parent and not getting along, keep that to yourself. Don't vent to your friends in front of your child. This is especially important for the younger Libras. Like all kids, they need to feel like mom and dad have things handled and under control. And they need harmony in their environment in order to grow and thrive. It's like water and sunlight for them. Now let's talk about an important kind of paradoxical facet of Libras, and that is that they tend to be very opinionated. Because they are always looking at both sides of something, they will eventually pick a side and can tend to polarize things and get very black and white. So Libra can be very judgmental, which is paradoxical for someone who seeks harmony in relationships. If they see someone or something as being out of balance, they will try to harmonize the situation by offering the alternate option that may not have been considered. So this can show up as behavior that is quite the opposite of people-pleasing, which is a paradox of Libra. They even manage to bring balance to their own personalities this way. Sometimes this takes the extreme of being argumentative, just for the sake of debating. Libra usually loves a good debate, and they can argue a point that they don't even believe just because they enjoy the mental exercise of examining the other perspective. If your Libra is in high school and they have a debate club, encourage them to give it a try. Maybe they will drive you a little less crazy at home. It's not uncommon for Libras to seek a career in law either. Their ability to synthesize opposing viewpoints can help them make a case for just about anything. But don't be surprised if they argue with you about whether the sky is blue. It is mental sport for them. One of the most pronounced downsides of considering both sides of things is that Libra can be very indecisive. They will weigh the pros and cons and can get stuck because they want to make the perfect choice. That judgmental nature can all of a sudden not be able to form an opinion about what is best. So it's really important to remind them that it doesn't have to be perfect, that life is designed to be messy, that sometimes we have to make mistakes to find out the answer to what's best for us. Try to encourage your Libra to enjoy the process of trial and error. Tell them that experiencing the opposite of what they want can lead them to knowing and understanding their needs better. With older Libras, you can have a deeper conversation about this. But with the younger kids, a simple phrase like, "they're both good options," or "either choice is the right one," or "there's no wrong choice," can be a quick way to give them permission to leap. And if all else fails, you go ahead and make the choice for them, and watch how quickly they counter it with their own opposing choice. Voila, choice made and balance achieved. But in general, remind them that they don't have to be perfect and that life is messy. Validate for them that you know that messy is uncomfortable and that is life and they are strong enough to handle it. The last important thing I want to talk about is Libra's social graces. They tend to like good manners and they strive to be polite. They want to smooth out the rough edges of life and will try to do this by bringing harmony to social interactions. They may not like being around loud or coarse people. They prefer genteel ways of relating. Libra is known for all of the courtship rituals that we associate with dating, and they can actually be a little old-fashioned about it. This is the suitor who throws his jacket over the puddle so the lady can step over it. This is the kid who may want to bring flowers to a first date. In this way, Libra can come across as rather conventional. Obviously, modern society has gotten pretty lax about etiquette, so maybe these kids can help keep our society more civilized. Praise and encourage these good manners whenever possible. And if your Libra daughter's date pulls up to the curb and honks the horn for her, she probably won't like it. Libras usually have high standards, and this is one area of life where that is important and possibly even life-saving. Let your Libra keep their standards high, and those who can rise to meet them are their people. Libra is ruled by the planet Venus, so be sure to look at your child's Venus position for a deeper dimension and understanding of their nature. Our final air sign, Sun, is Aquarius. Yes, Aquarius is known as the water bearer, but it is definitely an air sign. The water bearer goes to a common source and brings something of value to others, sharing their gift with the community. This sums up Aquarius quite well. They are humanitarians who see themselves as part of the fabric of society. Aquarius being the opposite of Leo, their attention is less on the self and more on the collective. They have an innate sense of brotherhood and are most comfortable in community with others. They need a sense of belonging to something outside of themselves. So Aquarius is often associated with groups of people who are united in a common interest or goal. But, paradoxically, this community-minded kid is also strongly individualistic. They march to the beat of their own drum, as the saying goes. These are the innovators of the zodiac, the mad scientist, nutty professor types. Aquarius is incredibly future-minded and often needs to break away from tradition and find their own way of doing things. This has earned them the reputation of being the rebels of society. They can be unconventional and avant-garde. They use the reasoning power of air to come up with new ways to progress and advance society. So they need a lot of space to do things their own way. This sometimes makes them misfits in their own family, school, or profession. They don't always fit in because they are charting a new course. This can be really challenging for more traditional types of people, but try to see the bigger picture here. The rule breakers, the iconoclasts, are contributors to the advancement of society. If no one ever broke the mold, there would be no new inventions, no innovations, no technology. Aquarius is able to help the crowd because he does not fit in with them. The water bearer that represents the sign was probably the first person to use a container to transport the water. They think outside the box. Of all 12 zodiac signs, Aquarius is probably the hardest for me to describe. They can be rather inscrutable. There are a few reasons for this, but mainly it is because they are different from others. They can feel like aliens in their own community, which has the interesting effect of making them very tolerant of others' differences. Come one, come all, they often have a lot of friends, and those friends are from all walks of life. Because they don't always fit in, they don't need others to conform to any type of standard either, and this gives them that admirable and beautiful humanitarian streak. It can also make them fairly impersonal. There's an emotional detachment here that can make close interpersonal relating uncomfortable for them. They tend to have a lot of friends but few intimates. They are more comfortable with less personal group connections than deeply close intimate ones. This is because they see themselves as being part of the larger whole, and their life orientation is focused on advancing that group. They don't like to get too bogged down with emotions. They are much more comfortable in their heads than in their hearts. So you will need to reach them through their mind, which means using reason to guide them. If your Aquarius child is rebelling against a rule or tradition that is essential for you, give them clear reasons as to why it is the best way of doing things, and also connect it to the greater good of the family, school, or team. For example, bedtime is 9 o'clock, so we are all rested and able to get up, have breakfast, and get to school on time. Or, everyone has to wear their school t-shirt on the field trip, so no kid accidentally gets left behind. Remind them that they are conforming for the greater good, and they will usually be more cooperative. And in general, don't give them unnecessary things to rebel against. Pick your battles with these kids. If you burden them with a lot of petty rules and aren't willing to think outside the box yourself, you will be dealing with an incredibly rebellious, defiant kid. Chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you are willing to entertain different perspectives in life. Just be aware of your Aquarius child need to make their own rules and give them that latitude whenever appropriate. We have so many responsibilities as parents that sometimes we get stuck in certain ways of doing things. We're just trying to get through the day and accomplish basic goals that we defer to our tried and true methods. And an unconscious rigidity can come along with that. Then along comes your Aquarius wanting to shake things up, and your initial response may be, "No, this is how we do things." Pause and ask yourself, how important is it to do it that particular way or in that particular sequence? Does it really matter if your original rule breaker drinks their orange juice out of a coffee mug or puts on two different colored socks? Does it matter if he insists on eating his breakfast cereal with a fork? If you can give your Aquarius the space to do some small things differently, you will have more leeway for him to cooperate with the big stuff. So let your Aquarius blaze his own trail and embrace his uniqueness. Remember that he is very much an individual, and along with that comes a certain stubborn streak. He is who he is and usually has the strength of his convictions. He cares about society while not needing to conform to it. Each sign has a paradox or two, and this is Aquarius's. There's a detached, impersonal quality to his caring. He generally wants to do the right thing, but in his own way. He lets others be who they are and expects the same in return. Your Aquarius is highly intelligent, and his brain works in an original way. He often excels in the sciences and usually loves school. His highly original mind may want to challenge traditional models of education and methodology, so his best experiences will be with more open-minded teachers. Aquarius is the sign associated with technology, so he is wired to consider whether things could be done differently, to be more efficient. He's always considering how progress can be made. This may feel oppositional to the adults in his life, but try not to take it personally. He's just wired to question everything, unfortunately including authority. Another interesting thing to note about Aquarius, being that it's ruled by Uranus, the planet of lightning and earthquakes, they are prone to revelations about things. They have an unpredictable intuition that gives sudden flashes of insights and eureka kind of moments. This can be very strange to people who have more deliberate thought processes in decision making. They may find Aquarius to be impulsive or unpredictable, and this can be unsettling and confusing. It's just that Aquarius gets downloads, so to speak. The information comes clearly and quickly and often brings with it big changes. So your Aquarius child may shock and surprise you by changing their mind or suddenly being interested in something out of left field. It probably did come from left field, but remember, that doesn't necessarily make it any less valid. Deeper understanding about your unique Aquarius can be found by looking at the house position and planetary aspects of their ruling planet Uranus. So that will wrap up our discussion on how the sun expresses in air signs, for now anyway. Of course, there's so much more to say. As always, you know your child best, so take what resonates here and leave the rest. Feel free to share your thoughts on Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius in the comments section below. See you next time.